So I want to say that we all gathered here to celebrate Glenn's 70th birthday. And he wants to celebrate it like a rock star. So I'm sure that he will party later like that. I want to say that Glenn is a very happy man this evening because we have all gathered here to support him and to recognize this milestone. To look back a little bit at his career, academically, he attended, as you would have heard from the church, St. Benedict's College, Presentation College, the University of West Indies, his BSc in Maths and Physics, Diploma in Education, his Masters in Education. And he also was a part-time lecturer and tutor with NESC after he retired. And presently, for the last 7 years, he has been a member of the board of COSTAT. So Glenn has continued to display his social responsibility by continuing to use his skills and his talents in education. And I want to say that over the years, he has been a role model to many of us. And because of him and really Sandra, my career in education started. In 1985, somewhere around May, I took up a position at Irie High School as a teacher too because Sandra went on maternity. And I'm sure Glenn had something to do with that. And that's where I got my first introduction to teaching. And after a while, I came back in and continued. So I want to thank Glenn for that. Yes? And I want to say too that for those of you who were members of staff at Hoover-Sec, there are many other things that he's done. I have about 4 pages here. But when Glenn was the head of department and dean and sports master at Irie High School, I was a chemistry teacher, biology teacher, and my brother was teaching at Hoover-Sec. And all of the students at Hoover-Sec, which is now, I think, Hoover East, would do really well at the O-levels, and then they would go off to win scholarships at Presentation and at, is it Holy Faith Convent? Yes? And so the teachers there decided that they would want to start the A-level program, and the Ministry of Education told them that they couldn't ask more teachers. So my brother Ronald spoke to me, I spoke to Glenn, and all of the information we had at Irie, we passed across to Hoover-Sec. One of our colleagues who passed away, Frank Gopi, and myself would have gone and we would have barbecued and raised funds. I think Mr. Dukaran would have been there. Chemistry, I'm sure you would. And so when Glenn went as vice principal and principal at Hoover, he would have found documents from Irie High School that he would have signed so many years ago. And it says a lot about him that, you know, in giving us permission as the head of department to help another school, it helped him in the long run. And it made life easier for him when he became principal. So I want to say that Glenn is a man of great vision, great generosity, and he has left us an outstanding legacy. So let's put our hands together and officially welcome Glenn Khan to his 70th birthday celebration. And so now, in introducing some of his close friends, his colleagues, and Glenn told me this. He says that 15-year-olds have attention span about 5 minutes. Now we are closer to where? 60 and 70. I think our attention span, Leo, might be about 2 minutes. So I want to introduce a gentleman who I've known all my life, Mr. Leo Dudnat, and I want to say a couple of things about Leo. Leo was a young man when I had to make my choice to go to Naparima College of Presentation. And I will look every day at Leo and Len wait for their taxis. And I saw Leo had a prefect badge on him. And he was always going late to school. So when my father asked me, he said, "What school do you want to go to?" I said, "That looks like I go to school, Naparima College." And so that was my first choice. And so I want to thank Leo for that. Now, Leo was an educator for about 20 years. He's a businessman, politician, influencer, sportsman, diplomat. And I want to say that he has headed many organizations. Penang Sports Association, South Zone Cricket. He has been vice president of Trinidad and Tobago Cricket Board, chairman of the Superior Regional Corporation, and so many others. So let's put our hands together and welcome Mr. Leo Dudnat.
Thank you for your kind and probably exaggerated words of introduction, Dr. Michael Dowlett. Our special guest of honor this evening, Mr. Glenn Khan, Mrs. Khan, and the others of the Glenn Khan family. Our featured speaker this evening, Justice Francis Prasad, relatives, friends, colleagues, distinguished ladies and gentlemen all, it is indeed a pleasure for me to be here and to join with all of you and to be a part of this, what I'm sure we all acknowledge to be a most momentous and auspicious occasion indeed. This, the 70th birthday celebration of a true friend and brother and colleague, a dear husband, father, grandfather, father-in-law, as we have heard, a legendary sportsman and educator. And I speak none other than the gentleman we in the Penal area refer to as the one and only, the great Glenn Khan. I have been asked to confine my discourse to what we're referring to. And when any of us in the group would hear of a party somewhere, we will all invite ourselves there, Glenn in it of course. And it was at these parties, Glenn would shine and take over the show because you know he was bigger, strong and well built and muscular. And with his signature berry hat, he would, what was very popular then, I think we used to call it funk music. Glenn took over the party by being the best funky dancing personnel ever. We used to call him the funky dancing king. Now don't tap on your tongue there. And we used to, as young boys, little drill, we storm in cooking night too as well. Most of the time when we do these stormings, somebody will know us or we will know somebody. So it was easy. And the same, we start with cooking nights. One night we stormed a cooking night though, Glenn, the same group, and unfortunately, nobody knew us or we knew anybody. And the gentleman who was sharing the food, he said, well, we knew it was the boy side, we were by the boy side, the Tulaha side, and the gentleman who was sharing the food, he said, so where you from? What is the groom's friend and so on? Well, we know you. Glenn, even at that age, was very, very quick-witted. He responded off the cuff. You know, we're from the girl side. And Growing up again, and reminiscing, Michael, my 2 minutes finished 1 minute. What struck me about Glenn in the early days when we started lining together, well, of course, we're making a little cook here, we're camping out there, we're going on the beach here. Whenever we lining, if somebody throw down a cigarette butt, and in those days, a few people used to smoke, if somebody threw down a cigarette butt, Glenn was there to clean it up. If somebody rest down an empty an empty Coke bottle, Glenn would be the one to come and pick it up. He had this compulsion with cleanliness and neatness. And as young boys, I myself admired that very, very much about Glenn at a very young age. So clean and tidy. I remember, apart from lining in those days, I'm still in the early 70s, we were, the young boys, all of us in Pinal, we were heavily involved in sport. And Glenn excelled in all of these sports that we were engaged in. Of course, I'm sure later down in the program somebody will talk about Glenn's exploits in sports, but for now, in those days, volleyball was very, very popular. We had an old volleyball court in Pinal, and volleyball was very, very popular. And when Glenn joined the group, within 2 months, he became a master of the art of volleyball playing. So much so that in 1973 or 72, I think it was, the Pinal Central with Glenn, we won the South Zone Trinidad and Tobago Volleyball Federation beating competition. Glenn excelled in football, in cricket. Within 1 year of Glenn joining the Pinal Central fraternity, we elected him as captain of the Pinal Central cricket team. That is an indication of a signaling of Glenn's, what would turn out to be very excellent leadership qualities. I remember I was at Nottingham College. David Sami, though, vexed with me, I was at Nottingham College, and 1972, 73, I was in upper 6th. Glenn had now completed advanced levels at Presentation College. He had picked up a teaching appointment, I think it was at Marbella Junior Sec, before attending UWI. And Glenn and I would meet, of course, prior to that, all the boys who live in Pinal and go to school in San Fernando, we meet in the promenade to get our taxi and we'd line and so on. But on this occasion,
driver PD 6134.
I was saying, on Fridays, Glenn and I would meet. I in my Nottingham College uniform, and Glenn, now starting to teach, we would meet at what was then Royal Castle at the top of High Street opposite the library. And we'll meet there for chips, a little portion of chips and a beverage, Glenn and I would meet there for. And what used to amaze me and what I was intrigued about was, during our conversations, Glenn displayed this conviction and commitment for teaching and for guidance and for counseling. And he expressed deep concern for the young children under his care, and he was just 19 years old. Of course, the rest is history. We heard it from Dr. Michael. Glenn went on to enjoy a very, very long and meritorious and distinguished career in the teaching service. Sandra, Glenn looks very well. He's happy. He's comfortable. He's cool. He's good. We thank you. I want to say to you that your husband's character is indeed worthy of emulation. Glenn, on behalf of that Pinal Central fraternity, we want to thank you for being that long-standing friend that you are to us, and you have been to us, and will always be to us. We want to thank you for your support for us and for your concern, for the concern you show to all of us, and so continue to do so up to now. On behalf of that group and my own wife and my family, We want to commend you and compliment you and congratulate you on the attainment of your 70th birthday. And I want to assure you that our prayers and our best wishes will be with you always. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Leo. Well done. And while my friend Deran Sukhdev is coming up, we want to recognize, as Leo indicated, Sandra, former secondary school teacher at Irie High School, presently senior auditor, the two children, Nigel, Sharon, their spouses, and the 4 wonderful grandchildren. Let's give them a round of applause. And so, Mr. Deran Sukhdev, past teacher, dean, and retired as acting vice principal of Irie High School. But he's better known as Mr. Irie. He went to Irie, his wife went to Irie, his brother went to Irie, his sister went to Irie, 3 children went to Irie. And so Glenn met Deran at Irie High School in 1978 and left him there in 1997. So I think Deran knows a lot about Glenn, some that he talk about and some that he shouldn't talk about. And so, as I invite my friend Deran Sukhdev, I want to say that Deran was very inspirational to me too. The first day Sandra took up that appointment at 10 a.m. in the morning at Irie High School, Deran said, Dawlat, let's go on the road. And so we went out the road, first year school, teaching, and we had a beer. And so it's a new way of training, I think, that worked well for all of us who became administrators. So let's welcome our friend Deran Sukhdev.
Thank you very much, Dr. Michael Dawlat, for your introduction. Not totally true. Mr. Glenn Khan, greetings to Mrs. Sandra Khan, Nigel and family, Sharon and family, special guests. I feel proud, honored, privileged, and I am experiencing an overwhelming sense of pleasure and nostalgia to be afforded this opportunity today to address you, a very distinguished and knowledgeable audience, at today's celebration of Mr. Glenn Khan's birth anniversary. Happy birthday, my brother. To Mary Dosthai. All it means is, you are my friend. Congratulations on attaining the proverbial 70. But biblically, you are now called upon for the rest of the year to labor, and the priest earlier hinted as to the extent of that labor. And it begins with sometimes awakening in the morning and having to sit at the side of the bed for about 30 seconds so that you'll have your blood system in order and flowing. But before I venture to delve into the celebratory aspect of your birthday, I wish to navigate my conversation of Mr. Khan and speak more of his tenure at Irie High School, which was from April 1978 to October 1997. His areas of specialization, as mentioned by Dr. Dawlat, are in mathematics and physics, and at that time he taught 30 to 35 periods per week, 40-minute period, out of a maximum of 40 periods. He was also a form teacher for that length of time, and also he was called upon to make the annual school timetable and all the exam timetable, and sometimes given just a 24-hour time span to do so. Glenn was the head of the science department and sports master from 1981 to 1997, and he was Dean of Discipline and Studies from 1991 to 1997. He was the coordinator and staff professional development day committee member, in addition to serving as our tutor rep for approximately 5 years. So, Mr. Khan, I believe you have already labored, and the rest should be easy. And so, maybe now you'll have ample time and opportunity to educate and play with your grandchildren. Mr. Khan's keen interest and appetite for education, as you would have heard from Dr. Dowlett, was not limited to his achievement of BSc and DPED and so on, but he was always willing to attend workshops and seminars and lectures at any locality throughout Trinidad and Tobago. Luckily, we didn't have to go to Tobago. Irie's outstanding accomplishment, both academic and co-curricular, can be attributed to his enthusiasm, commitment, diligence, and selfless service without remuneration at that point in time. And there's a Hindi term for that. It is called seva. Our success too is due to his encouragement of teachers to become more conversant with modern teaching and testing techniques, and of course, an ever-evolving philosophy in education. I admire Mr. Glenn Khan's strong moral and spiritual values, since he did not abandon his religion in order to possibly attain administrative power, knowing that he had the respect and support of his four principals, and of course the Presbyterian Church under whom he functioned. He is a man of integrity. His transformational leadership, as hinted by Leo, his style facilitated an inclusive environment where challenges were met with innovative and productive solutions. Glenn walked the walk, and he is truly a gentleman of the highest order. I would like us to all stand at this point in time and let us give this gentleman, who has dedicated his life to holistic quality education, a lusty and thunderous round of applause. I want to get back into the birthday celebrations. You know, we have to sing the birthday song. I know what you're expecting. You're expecting Bar Bar Din Ye Aaye. Anyhow, we'll leave that one for later. But I would like you to lift your voices in unison, hopefully. I know we haven't practiced, but we're going to sing this, you know, for he's a very good fellow, which nobody can deny, and then we'll repeat again, for he is a very good fellow, and we do it 3 times. Are you all ready? I'll try to lead you, but I'm not a singer. Let's go. On the count of 3. 2, 3. For he's a jolly good fellow, for he's a jolly good fellow, for he's a jolly good fellow, which nobody deny, which nobody can deny, which nobody can deny. For he's a jolly good fellow, for he's a jolly good fellow, for he's a jolly good fellow, which nobody can deny. Thank you. You may take your seat. Happy birthday, my brother. May the Almighty bless you with a long, prosperous, and healthy life, filled with limitless opportunities for experiencing ecstatic happiness. I leave you with a quote from Khalil Gibran. It goes like this: in the sweetness of friendship, let there be laughter and sharing of pleasures. For in the dew of little things does the heart find its meaning and is refreshed. Thank you all.
Thank you very much, Dheeraj, for that wonderful insight. And I want to say that Dheeraj encapsulated all of the talents of Glenn, and that's why over lunchtime during a game of All Falls, Glenn will teach us about making timetables, where the principal in school will normally take 3 or 4 days, Glenn would make it in 12 hours. And so we all learned that talent. And so thank you, Glenn, for teaching all of us some of those unique skills that you have. And when we had to plan that Friday Lines of Queenam, Glenn will pass out a note to everybody. You bring the salad, you bring the cooler. He was quite meticulous, and who would bring the garbage bags to clean up after. Excellent. And so we've heard from Leo, from the community, we've heard from Dheeraj in terms of Ivy High School and the formative years as an educator there, and the impact Glenn made. We want to go to one of Glenn's students, a gentleman, Mr. Martin Lumpkin. Martin attended Ivy High School during the time when Glenn was Dean and Sportsmaster. And I distinctly remember during that time that Martin was the captain of the Ivy High School cricket team, and he was the head boy. Martin's substantive post is as principal of Granville RC School, but presently, and he is the sitting president of Tutor. So let's all put our hands together and welcome Martin Lumpkin.
Thank you very much, Master of Ceremonies, Dr. Dowlat, Justice Sipasad, other specially invited guests, the man of the moment, Mr. Khan, Mrs. Khan, and family. Good evening. It is indeed an honor and pleasure. I am truly humbled to be asked to bring greetings not only for Tutor, but myself personally as well too. And I would have listened to Mr. Sukhdeo and Mr. Dudnat, and I want to say, I have so many past teachers here of mine. I really have to behave myself. I tuck my shirt in my pants, and I come up here quite respectful. So the impact that Mr. Khan had as a student, at that time, we didn't understand what was taking place. But now, as we reflect, we understand what Mr. Khan would have brought to us as students. One of the things Mr. Khan, we remember, is his forthrightness in class. He would always be very to the point. One of the sayings I remember, whenever we didn't do what we were supposed to do, he would say, "Woe be unto you." I don't know if Mr. Khan remembers that. Mr. Khan also had that impact as a sports person as well too. And a number of our teachers have what we call legal authority. Mr. Khan has had legal authority as well as moral authority, because we saw a certain fairness when he was in the classroom. No matter who you were, he tried his best to bring out the best in you, and sometimes we were frustrating to him, especially in hard maths. I used to get in the 30s, and when I got CHC A-levels results, I eventually passed hard maths. I was surprised. However, he was that character that kept us, and a number of us looked up to him, and we tried to emulate him. For a number of reasons I would not say, not only educationally, but in terms of sports. And I want to personally thank Mr. Khan for the contribution that he would have placed in not only my life, but a number of students that passed through IRE at the time. And I know that if they were present and they had to contribute to what Mr. Khan did, they would only have positive things. Now, mind you, we were fearful of Mr. and Mrs. Khan. When you were choosing subjects and you were getting teachers, you were afraid of getting the cans, as we used to call them. But at the end, you were thankful as well, because they would have pushed you and you knew what you were capable of. So I personally want to thank Mr. Khan. 10 years ago, we had a similar conversation when he retired, and there was that cricket match at IRE High School between IRE and his school that he would have retired from, Cuba East Set. And I know there are a number of colleagues here. So Mr. Khan, on behalf of myself, my wife, my family, I thank you from the bottom of my heart. But on behalf of Tutor as well, because you would have exuded that professionalism which Tutor tries to have all our members perform on a daily basis. So thank you, Mr. Khan. We wish you all the best. God's blessings. Happy birthday, and may God continue to richly bless you. Thank you very much. Dr. Dolan was my form teacher in lower 6, and biochemistry teacher too. Thank you very much.
Everyone here should know who I am, because I know everyone that's here. All right, I am Nigel. I am Glenn Khan's, how can I say daddy? Because Glenn Khan's son, okay, one of 2 children, and my sister Sharon is somewhere in here. All right. So I am the son of 2 teachers, and obviously being the son of 2 teachers who were teachers for a quite long period of time, I get to meet other teachers. And I call many of you uncle and auntie, because that's how I was raised to know you. I remember somebody asking in primary school, why are you calling these people uncle and auntie? Because that's not your father, brother, your father, sister, whatever. There was 2 answers I could have given. One is the obvious, where in Trinidad, if somebody's close to your parents, they call them uncle and auntie. But the other response, which is the one I gave, is that the people who I call uncle and auntie are close to my parents, like brothers and sisters, and that is why I call a lot of them uncle and auntie. Alright? So if I call you uncle and auntie throughout the night, it's because I've been calling you uncle and auntie for the past 41 years. So right now I'll take the pleasure of introducing Mr. Ramesh Dukran, who ironically, even though he is a teacher, I only know him through social events. Alright, sports and after work lines. I don't know why I was there, but right, after work lines, after he finished work. Right? So Mr. Dukran, he attended Cuba East formally. Sorry, I'm not 70 years old, but my eyesight is probably the same as daddy's. Right? He attended Cuba East, known as Cuba Government Secondary School back then, and he joined the teaching staff in 1991. He retired from Cuba Sec in September 2022. As a senior chemistry teacher and acting head of science department during Daddy's stewardship. His both daughters also attended Cuba Sec. His elder one is a former National Open Scout winner, while his younger one is entering Upper 6 this year. He was also very much connected to Presal Sports Club. He was former cricket captain and also served as club treasurer from 1990 to 2016. And like I said, I know him through social events. Just last month, we played a cricket match which was also in honor of my dad, and he took a spectacular catch. And if you haven't heard about it right now from him, he will tell you tonight. All right, Mr. Dukran, your mic is yours. Good catch. Thank you, Nigel. For those of you who don't know, yes, it was me who picked the catch on Indian Arrival EU. I think it was York. All right. I first met Mr. Khan when he came to Kuvasek we would have called it Kuvasek back then, now it's Kuva East Secondary, in 1997. And one of my first encounters with Mr. Khan, I believe Mr. Bilrad was also there, was in a meeting discussion on graduation. And there was this new teacher who came in, and we were trying to formalize the price to charge the students for the graduation exercise. And we worked out the price to be $80 per student. And this teacher said, well, here what? We could charge them $100. So we could make a 20 on it to subsidize the teachers' food and drinks. Chana, you would have been proud of me. Because I put in that man backside, Mr. Khan get up and walk out the room quietly. Only to meet me behind after and say, Dukran, I supported you 100%, but I really couldn't stay there. The meeting over, I say, yeah, the meeting over, $80 is the price. Nobody else here would. That man got on serious cost. And that's how I met Mr. Khan officially there in school. And from then on, we would have, of course, been good friends and so on after that. But before I talk about Mr. Khan, I must say good evening to everybody, the Khan family, greetings to you all, and of course the featured speaker and everyone else. A very good evening. To understand the work that Mr. Khan did, we have to go back a little bit. As Dr. Dowlat was alluding to, the school, government school that is, lacked an A-level program. There was a business model studies program that started in the 1980s, but the science area was lacking. And as he quite rightly said, that school was producing students, top performers at the O-level. But due to lack of spaces in the central area, A-level spaces that is, the students, some of them didn't get to do A-levels and things like that. So the teachers, headed by the science department head at that time would have been Mr. Drown, and the PTA embarked on this project to start the A-level science program in the early 1990s. Now, the Ministry of Education did not see fit to fund that program. There was absolutely no funding from the ministry, and the teachers and, of course, not only science teachers, but other teachers as well in the school had to, of course, hold fundraising events and so on, and well supported by the PTA. So they embarked on the project, and a few years into the 1990s there, the A-level science program started with funding from the PTA, and of course, fundraising events held by the teachers also. Dr. Dowlat, his brother, Ronald Dowlat, was the chemistry teacher at the time. I had now come in as a junior chemistry teacher, he was of course the senior one. And we started this program, and up to today, all the notes and resources that we would have used in the initial stages came from Ivy High School. And from, obviously, Dr. Dowlat, that was the link, the Dowlat link. And we want to say thanks for that, because we didn't have anything. The labs were poor, of course, all resources on the whole were very limited. So that project started, and it was developing, and of course, the entire staff was into it. So there was a drive, of course, to produce top performance.
Now you would realize, parents, probably all of you, parents, grandparents and so on, why do people choose a school, a particular school for their children from the primary school or the SEA level? One of the determining factors is clearly, and the general public will allude to this, the performance of the school at A levels. And let me put it bluntly, in Trinidad and Tobago, national scholarships. That would have been one of the driving force, but the main reason for this project really is to accommodate those students. And we knew that we had quality people. We knew that. So we have to, of course, draw up a plan and then implement. As Balat, we had a plan, just like Darren Sami. But the difference is we had a detailed route of how to implement it. And to think then, and we will have success at the end of the tunnel. So Mr. Khan came in 1997. This structure was already in place and functioning. What he did now was to tweak a little bit the little structures and so on. He was a person coming from a sporting background, similar to me and Mr. Diraj. From his sporting experience now would have, of course, given him this extra edge in terms of interpersonal skills and teamwork. Teamwork was his mantra, by the way. Teamwork. That's how we're going to get things done. So, he sought to improve the system. The first national scholarship that school won was in 1977, and it was in the area of modern studies. And that was Mr. Diraj. Right? So, 1997, yes, sir. Good. So it started there. During that period, now, Mr. Khan was doing, when he came as the VP in the school, he was doing his master's in education. And he had asked me right back then to say a few words on one of his presentations. And I remember he was talking about his A-level program and how this thing set to take off, you know. So of course, in that program were some teachers from some of the prestige schools in Central Trinidad, who of course still think we are government school now. You know, they're not going nowhere, they're only talking. They're like Darren Zami. So what happened now? Mr. Khan asked me to say some words, and some of the teachers, they were saying, well, all your students performing and things now because they're taking lessons by some of the prestige school teachers and things, so well, they all get a little thing now and then. So Mr. Khan asked me to say something, so I tell one of the teachers, I say, listen, lady, this program is in the embryonic stage, that's my exact words. And you just sit down there and you wait till you see something here. 1997 to 2002, Mr. Khan was the VP. 2002 to 2013, principal. So he spent 16 years there. That was the only missing 16 years from South, I believe, because the rest of his years was in South Trinidad. So for those of you who don't know, the missing years was in Cuba. Right. Now, the program, of course, Mr. Khan now, the principal, and knowing his management style, which I want to refer to, collaborative. He would call us in, and he would set committees and everything of a committee, and meetings, and of course, a proper structure. Because he believed, and I also share that same thought, structure survives, not people. And structure and stability is probably one of the driving forces in most of these prestige schools. They have a board and they have stability. Government schools, for those of you who thought it's different. When somebody new comes in as the principal, it's like a new political party. So they disband this and they start something new. And the school keeps feeling like talking model. And they don't go anywhere. That's the secondary school system, which I have worked in over 50 years. But this school was different. In the early years, there was a long period of Vernon Ramasa, and then, of course, Mrs. Delphi, and then Mr. Khan, who was VP for about 5 years, saw what was going on. And IE's culture and Cubaset culture was not too much
the front. So the transitioning for him, that transitioning period was not difficult. In 2002, he became the principal. Only want to make a guess the amount of scholarships that school win between the years 1997 to 2013. Now, if you have no idea, I could tell you, you could make one intelligent guess based on this ceremony we have in here. How much years Mr. Khan has today? 70. That happens to be the exact number of scholarships. Between the years 1997 and 2015. 70 national scholarships. Right. Now, national scholarship is one aspect, but I focus on that because that is what the public feeds on. So with national scholarship, obviously, you get more parents putting the school as their first choice. So we began to compete with some of those traditional and, of course, denominational schools. So that's why we sell a school with performance, and performance is marked in terms of national scholarships at A-levels. Mr. Khan did much more than that. During his tenure there, he started the alumni. Alumni is something unheard of in a government school. So you're looking at what is happening in the denominational school, and he tried to implement the alumni, and he called it, I believe it was the Prasad as the first president. So he also called me because I was a past student to get some people, and he started the alumni. So he introduced the alumni to the school. He also introduced a student council, which wasn't there before. So he gave the students some power to say what they think and so on. He revitalized the PTA, which was very active in the early 90s, but when it was state of dormancy for a few years. So he revitalized that body. He expanded the A-level program, and sitting with him, he would definitely remember this, the introduction of environmental science, which turned out to be a master stroke in terms of scholarships in the school. Mr. Khan strengthened links with the community. In the area of sports, you probably would have heard about Phoenix Women's Cricket Team. That ground in Kuvasek was their training ground. Of course, he would give, but they would have to, of course, reciprocate a little bit. And our girls got free practice and training and so on in cricket, so he lifted the level of cricket. He would have done a lot with the infrastructure in sports, cricket and football mainly. And Mr. Maharaj is here, who is still the PE teacher here. And he could tell you in 2014, the year after Mr. Khan left, the school was upgraded to championship level in both cricket and football. It happened in 2014, but the plans were made before, during Mr. Khan's tenure. So, sports, academics. He introduced co-curricular activities in the school. Co-curricular activities, and all of us would know things like yoga, volleyball, sports, whatever it was. Take your group and go ahead on a Friday evening. He celebrated everything. Every occasion for a celebration, Mr. Khan will be up front. In fact, I think Mr. Maharaj and Mr. Deval might remember this, because he had a social events committee. Of course, he had committee this everything. And the day before one of his Christmas function, he called us and said, fellas, the social events committee can't handle this thing for tomorrow. So always plan B. You understand? So everything has to organize the Tuesday evening for the Friday morning. He said the show must go on. There must be a celebration. We're not going home just so. That was Mr. Khan. Then I left this one for the last, because I think this brought him the greatest satisfaction during his stay at Kuvasek. The upgrade of the library. Now, that would have helped. Now, let me explain how this thing works. Remember, earlier I said the A-level program started and so on. A library facility was missing, and there was one, but it was deficient. And Mr. Khan upgraded that system to what is called a media center. And in 2011, 2 years before he left, Cuba East Secondary, well, it was Cuba Government Sec, or Cuba East Secondary, whichever name you prefer, won the top library in Trinidad and Tobago, schools library. It was the #1 schools library in Trinidad and Tobago, prize given by Nalis. There's a big trophy there handed to the school. So that library was a special thing to him. And you know, he said, we're doing well already, right? But we have to focus on this library facility, more resources there, so that, of course, we could get better results. So Mr. Khan, on his door, the principal's office, there was this Gandhi quote that he had there. Be the change you wish to see in the world. Be the change that you wish to see in the world. Mr. Khan, I think you achieved that. Not just achieved, but achieved with distinction. And when you left that place, as I said, there were 70. But I have to also mention, since I'm talking about the scholarship and the performance of the school in general in all areas, the following principals, 2 of which are here, Ms. Madhuri Prasad Ali and Mr. Dilraj. I would think, because from my experience, that they followed more or less what you had in place. They would have tweaked little things here and there, but generally, there was stability to a government school. Stability in policies, in structure, and of course in drive to excellence. So that stability is what guided that school. And that school was consistently performing. And up to 2020, the scholarship number reached 109. 109 students who probably would not get a space at A-levels have national scholarships, both open and additional, whatever form they are getting. So, Mr. Khan played an integral role in the development of policies and structure, and of course the performances of students. Now, when I talk about the performance, people would think that we were performance driven. While that is a fact, the main, if you understand a school in Cuba, we are talking here about middle class and lower middle class people. During that period, a lot of cane cutters, and then of course carry this bandit and so on. So you have a lot of people, a lot of poverty too. A lot of these people would not have made it. So Mr. Khan, I want to wish you a very happy birthday on behalf of the people from Cuba here and all those who are even not here. Happy birthday and thanks for the 16 years in Cuba and all the best here. Thank you. So as I mentioned earlier, I call a lot of you uncle and auntie. And our next speaker is one that I call Auntie Angela. Okay, before I go to what she sent me to say, I will say what I want to say first. Okay? So, even though Auntie Angela was a teacher, I didn't know her as a teacher originally. I obviously knew her as a neighbor. And she was also my friend's moms, okay? Her son and daughter are similar ages to Sharon and me. So she used to live in the same street, and I would spend a lot of time at their house because I go to play with her kids. And also she used to pick me up and drop me up from school on some days because, again, we went to the same primary school and secondary school as her kids. And even when she eventually moved, I can't remember exactly when, but she eventually moved to another part of the village. And even when she moved, I used to jump on a bicycle and go out by the new house as well. And again, spend a lot of time there, you know. There's a saying that it takes a village to raise a child, and she was literally part of that village. Okay? So, I'll read the text that I was sent. To Auntie Angela Ailu, family, friend, and neighbor, attended uni with Daddy and Mommy. She was a roommate with Mommy in St. Augustine for a year. She is married to Dr. David Ailu, and their both children are similar in age to Nigel and Sharon, and attending the same schools around the same time. That's 1 year difference. Auntie Angela taught at St. Benedict's College, Laramie, and was promoted to principal at Holy Faith Convent, Cuba, at the same time when Glenn was promoted to principal at Cuba Second. She was elected president of the Association of Principals of Public Secondary Schools, and subsequently Glenn was elected to vice president position. She then moved on to school supervision. After retirement, she began a senior position at the National Training Agency, NTA. And last but very importantly, Auntie Angela is also my godmother. Please welcome Angela Eileen.
Good evening, everyone. I think Nigel said everything I was going to say, right? Because you all would have heard a lot about Glenn professionally. You would have heard about his early life and where do I fit in. I am here really as a friend and a colleague. And I am extremely happy to be here and to be chosen to talk in that capacity. How do I know Glenn? It would seem that Glenn and I ran parallel lives, intersected for most of our lives. I knew Glenn at UWI, Glenn and Sandra at UWI. Then we all graduated. Each person went off to their own professional direction. And lo and behold, some years later, we end up living on the same street, almost opposite each other, right as that, opposite each other. Years go by, we all have children at the same time. Boy, boy, girl, girl. So, we intermingled, and Glenn is no good morning friend, Glenn and Sandra. They were real friends in the neighborhood, in the sense that Glenn and I shared dropping children to school. And I want to emphasize that aspect of Glenn's character, one where you talk about dependability and reliability. We shared dropping children to school throughout primary school and throughout secondary school. And there was not one day I could remember that Glenn called to say, I cannot make it this morning. Never. He diligently, 7 o'clock, Sharon and Nigel, you remember that? Diligently at 7 o'clock, children in car, even when we moved from being opposite and we went on a couple streets away. Same thing. They went to school with Glenn in the morning and I picked up in the afternoon. So that created a bond, a family. We shared birthday parties for children. We lived well together. Then, years again, we ended up going to UWI to do DPED together. Sandra, Glenn, and Tripper. Why Tripper, you remember? That's how I met Tripper. We started going UWI, carpooling, sharing, friendship building. Off we go again. We end up opposite each other in Cuba. Glenn as principal of Cuba Sec, and I as principal of HFC Cuba. And our companionship kept building, our professional life intermingled. And as true professionals, we both joined the Principals Association, eventually being part of the executive. And I want to just read a little bit about what happened here. We served in the Principals Association together. Apart from his contribution to the association, he was great at holding us together by planning endless lines and activities. And that would have been alluded to already, that Glenn was very good at planning and carrying out whatever he was interested in. We also depended in the association on Glenn for sponsorship. Glenn knows everybody. So when you want sponsorship, Glenn could get jerseys today for tomorrow. Glenn could get sponsorship for lunch for the association meetings, everything. He knew everyone. He knew everything. So throughout that journey, his friendship, dependability, warmth, and sense of humor were priceless. Now that we have gotten older, we are still friends, we still relate to each other, and I am extremely happy to be here today to celebrate Glenn's milestone of 70. May God continue to bless you, Glenn, with good health and happiness always. You have been a great friend, a faithful friend. You have provided us with support, both as socially and professionally over the years. On behalf of my family and on behalf of all the Glenn's professional colleagues from the Principals Association, I bring greetings to Glenn on his 70th birthday. Oh, and I see some people want to toast. So can we all stand and toast as we wish Glenn? Stand and let us raise our glasses. We all have bottles of glasses. And say happy 70th birthday, Glenn. We appreciate you. We appreciate your friendship. And we look forward to having a wonderful evening with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Auntie Angela. Our next speaker, another teacher, is a person that I call Uncle Leard. Uncle Leard is another person who I literally have known all my life, and also his sons as well. Okay, I was very close to actually his younger son, and up to now I still maintain a friendship with his older son, as we also have a bit of a business relationship as well. Okay, so Uncle Leard, who I would know since 1981, so I know him since 1981, obviously you guys know him for much longer. So Uncle Leard encouraged Glenn to apply for a teaching vacancy at Ivy High School in 1978, which brought them together both on a teaching and sporting level. Although Leard left Ivy in the early 80s, he continued to play with a number of sporting teams, including TNT, Quarry Superstars, Starfields, Trailblazers, Sunrise, and Cavaliers, among others. Significantly, all of these teams were successful in most of their competitive games of both cricket and football. They also shared executive positions in a number of organizations and were instrumental in pioneering several sporting tours and other events. That's the end of the text, but the field dimension is that Uncle Leard still plays football up to today. He plays in Canada, and I know if Uncle Leard knows this, but I've never been able to score a goal against him. Right? Please welcome Mr. Leard to Uncle Leard. Uncle Leard, you never score a goal on me.
Thank you, Nigel. Good evening, everyone. Father Tigari did say time passes very quickly. I remember myself and when the first drink when Nigel was born. Now he introduces me. Anyway, I'm sure you all will agree that I'm starting with some handicaps here. This is the culmination of quite a few functions held in honor of Glenn for his significant 70th. I think I spoke at about 3 or 4 of them, so there's not much left to add. Then again, I'm put after principals and lecturers and politicians to speak, so there's another disadvantage. Well, in the course of the day, I was telling my wife, I said, I have to say a few words in honor of Glenn and so. What should I say again? So should I write something? She said, no, you don't normally read and you could speak on that sort of thing. But I said, Glenn is 70 years old and I'm older than him. So I think I better look at the safe route and pen something down. Forgive me if I just browse through to find things that were not yet said. I'll try not to bore you. But my first introduction to this gentleman, Glenn Kehan, was, as one of them said, in the 70s, late 70s. In those days, I lived at Superior, Glenn lived at Pinal, and people from Superior didn't really pass through Pinal. They went into San Fernando, they went on Hyderabad. So I didn't know the community of Pinal as well. But this football game was organized as Glenn was playing for one of the popular teams in Pinal, Pinal Central, and I was playing for Quarry. And in those days, in youthful arrogance and so, we didn't like to lose. So the strategy would be to identify the star player or two of the opposing team and neutralize him and then get on with it. It was easy to spot the strategy of this team because in the center of the field was this tall, well-built gentleman wearing a Rasta beret and like a general controlling the game and dictating and saying where I'm going. So I told my guys, we have to get that guy. That was easier said than done. At the end of the game, the player Glenn was a skillful player and he had control, he had leadership and all that it took to be part of a good team. Now, I was teaching at Irie High School at the time, and a week or so later, it was music to my ears when I heard the principal say, we need a physics teacher. Right away, my mind went on him, right? So I contacted him, and the rest is history. He came to work at Irie. The first day he came, before he signed register, I told him we have a football match against the students this evening, and we can't lose. So that was the first assignment when he came to Irie, to play a football match against the students. 2 weeks later, he invited me to Pinal to play for his cricket team. Would have been Sunrise or one of them there. And I went to this game and so. And since then, that would be over 40 years ago, that we have shared this sporting relationship. In cricket and football, we have played football and cricket in Toko, Chagarama, Cedars, Central, in Guyana, Tobago, St. Grenada, St. Vincent, Barbados, all over, St. Lucia. Right? We have toured, we have played together as a group, as a family, and that sort of thing. At that time, he was, when I had asked about to identify this guy, he was then Longo, right? Popularly known as Longo. Later on, he went through different phases. He became Patrick Patterson. Those who remember the great fast bowler. Then, as Nigel said, Benkan. So that was one name, Benkan, right? And everybody knew him as that. And then eventually at Glenn. So, through all of this, our kids and so became friends. Well, Glenn's right, Sandra, and me and myself and Pat and so. Through sports, again, we became friends. Our kids, went together, played together, and that sort of thing. And I clearly remember one day, I drove up and I pulled my car and stopped in front of Glenn and Sandra's home. And Sharon would have been about age 3 or 4. I said, Sharon, where's the dad? And she knew me as Uncle Deraj. She said, he gone with Uncle Deraj to play football. No, that was like a mantra. She probably heard that so many times that as soon as somebody asked her, then he gone to football of Deraj. And that was it. So that was the sort of relationship we had. Among all of this, it is not to say that all have been smooth. Myself and Glenn have both strong convictions about things, and we would have had little differences in our sort of things. But I must say that I admire Glenn for this. He never holds anyone in mind. Right? You quarrel, you fuss, or whatever. But the next day, you are over that. Right? And we have been able to do that. I will not see Glenn for months, but when we see each other, we converse, we share friendship, and it's like, I don't know, right? We relate well. He has great respect for me, I myself have respect for him. And with this, we were able to live together with our families and friends, a rich, enhanced life of social life and sporting life. And I am extremely happy to have shared all this time with Glenn and Sandra and myself. And it's his birthday today. I want to wish Glenn and his family God's richest blessings and hope that he continues to be healthy, happy, friendly as he is there. And that tonight's function will not really give him a realization, but would affirm that the sort of legend that he is among all of us. Glenn, congratulations, and thanks for the invitation to join me.
Thank you very much, Deraj Ramgoolam, very close friend, colleague. And I want to say that now we had Martin Lumpkin, a former student. We have another young man who spent some time at Irie High School. He first attended Naparima College. He spent a year at Irie. He was taught by Glenn and Sandra mathematics. He was taught by myself and Deraj Sukhdev chemistry. He was taught by Faisal Rahman physics, master's chem. Justice Frank C. Prasad studied law at the University of the West Indies. Outstanding student at Heward Law School, 1996. He was the second most 1996. Yes, second most outstanding student. Then he went on to postgraduate work, studies at the London School of Economics, 1996 and 1997. And there he specialized in the LLM in intellectual property, alternative dispute resolution, and civil litigation. And he topped that program. He was elevated to the High Court as a judge in 2012. He was the youngest attorney to be appointed to the bench. He's married, he's the father of a 15-year-old girl. And he finds time to be a guest preacher with the Presbyterian Church. So I want to, all of us, put our hands together. Another outstanding student taught by Glenn and Sandra and all of us. Justice Frank C. Prasad.
Our chief celebrant, Mr. Khan, Mrs. Khan, members of the Khan family, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, good evening. It's a pleasure for me to be here with you. And I know there have been a lot of speeches, and you're probably very tired, so I promise you that I would not be very long. As you just heard, my interaction with Mr. Khan commenced in September of 1990 when I spent a year at Irie High School. He was my upper sixth math teacher. And it was evident to me then that he was assertive, he was authoritative, but he was always kind. His approach to teaching math was distinctly different from that which I was accustomed to at Naparima under Dr. Fayed Ali. Mr. Khan, though firm, was patient and always just so cool. Never flustered, never angry, but always steadfast and helpful. These attributes positively impacted upon my impressionable 17-year-old mind and made an indelible mark on my life, as I'm sure he did with hundreds of the students with whom he interfaced. My sister a few weeks ago was in Trinidad, and she reminded me that for someone who was horrible at math, her eventual A was a direct result of the dynamic duo of Mr. and Mrs. Khan at IRE. Fast forward 33 or 32 years, and here we are today celebrating Glen Khan's 70. But more importantly, we are here to celebrate his sterling contribution to education and the positive influence that he has made on the lives of so many of our nation's citizens. I understand that Mr. and Mrs. Khan have surmounted some health challenges, but it appears that together they continue to be an unbeatable team, and they have weathered and overcome those obstacles. But they have done so with the healing power of gratitude. The healing power of gratitude is a powerful remedy which can inspire us and fill us with hope. There are two scripture passages which I think important and I would like to share with you. The first is from Thessalonians, which says, "Comfort the frightened, help the weak, be patient with everyone. See that none of you repays evil for evil, but always seek to do good to one another." The other scripture passage says, "Rejoice always, constantly giving thanks in all circumstances, for this is the will of God in Christ Jesus." As a society, we are confronted with an unacceptable degree of dysfunction and turbulent times, and an evident sense, regrettably, of hopelessness seems to have engulfed us. It is important that we remember the importance of finding gratitude and giving thanks in even the most trying of circumstances. Being grateful and being thankful lifts our soul through its miraculous healing balm. And this approach pays homage to God's commands. As God's commandments have been made to make us agents and to allow us to receive his benefits when we conform to his will and live our lives in accordance with his word. Our Heavenly Father wants us to follow his will, to celebrate his word, and for us to elect to develop a spirit of gratitude, for that spirit brings to us joy and great happiness. Notwithstanding the many difficulties which confront us as a society, there is still a lot for us to be grateful for. There still is a lot for us to be hopeful about, and there still is an opportunity for us to effect the much needed change, to chart a new, prosperous and peaceful course. Being thankful is a form of worship, and when we express gratitude for who we are, for what we have, for the people we love, and for the experiences we share, we are really worshiping God with our hearts. A spirit of gratitude and thankfulness does not necessarily spare us from sadness, illness, or pain, but it does provide us with a greater perspective and allows us to recognize that God is in control and that He has a plan to bring joy, peace, and happiness to our lives. We have overcome a pandemic. Many of us have experienced devastating loss and grief. Others may have faced health challenges and some even economic hardship. But through it all, emboldened by a sense of thanksgiving and gratitude, we continue to overcome the obstacles. And hopefully, our faith and desire to serve God has remained intact and will continue to inspire us. In any circumstance, our sense of gratitude is nourished by the sacred truths that we know, such as that our Father in heaven has given to us His appointed Son so that we can live forever, and that in the end we will have glorious, perfect, and immortal bodies, unburdened by sickness or disability, and our tears, our fears, and our grief will be replaced with an abundance of happiness and joy. God has given us all that we require to live a purposeful life. He has given us prophets and apostles to emulate, and He has provided us with His Son, our Savior, whose example of perfect living has purchased for us freedom from the bondage of sin. Today, we are grateful that He has also given to us Glen Cann, an educator, a visionary, a man of patience, steadfastness, kindness, friendship, and empathy, who has touched and molded the lives of our nation's children through many generations. So today is indeed a day of celebration, as we are reminded about the healing power of gratitude, the power of faith, and the success which comes with steadfast adherence to that which we believe. Today we are truly thankful that God has granted to Mr. Cann the proverbial 10, and we pray that God continues to bless him, continues to inspire him, and I'm sure that he will continue making a difference with all those with whom he interacts and whose lives he continues to touch. So let us collectively again congratulate Mr. Cann on his 70th birthday and enjoy the opportunity afforded to us to share in this special occasion with him and his family. Thank you, and I am sure that you will enjoy the rest of the evening with the Cann family.
I want to invite Glenn and Sandra to come forward and to join in the vote of thanks. Glenn and Sandra, yes? And so we're coming to the close, and so
thanks, Michael. As you could be along, almost at the end of the formal proceedings, as we say thanks again. Remember, I said in the church, the most important word tonight is thanks. We would also want to give some tangible form of thanks, and Sandra will start that part. And I feel Sandra want to say something.
You want to hear me, right? I think I have to renew my marriage vows, but I don't know who you're talking about. It was really good hearing all the things that I didn't know or didn't see it that way. You know, it was an eye-opener, yes. I have to look a little different, look a little closer. You know, at least there's standards, so when they're strong in born to lady. But let me tell you all, take my word, when we reach 90. He will go to 91. I've been saying that since I was 30-something. I know he will reach the 90 and 90. He got the genes, he got the calmness, he got the, like you all described, you described to that little overset or, you know, get over it next day. So, happy birthday, Glenn, till 91. I may not be there for the 91st and the 90th, but happy birthday. A token of appreciation for Justice Francis Prasad, person I'm calling him that. I just want to say this part, you know. I have heard Frank in church, and every time he speaks, you feel like he's speaking to you. You know, like if you hear the speech, the sermon just for you. And today was no different. I feel that you knew Glenn, you knew what you were here for, and just hit this spot like they say, you know? So thanks for the work.
Ditto for everybody, for Frank for taking his time. We know that he's a very busy person and he chose to come here today to give greetings on behalf of himself. And I would say that everybody was speaking on behalf of the groups that they represented. Like Leo will be speaking on behalf of the PNL, Central People, Martin, the IE students, there as the IE teachers, and so on. Frank, nevertheless, also a student of mine, also, just like Michael was mentioning, he attended that and then attended IE. So Michael and I have a way of sharing students. This might not be the best thing to mention, but Michael and I also shared West Indies cricketer by the name of Nicholas Turan, who attended Kuvaset. And then after he learned cricket, he went nuts. And look at what. That may or may not continue, I don't know. Anyhow, I am saying something in a different way. I have been asked over the last few days when people knew that my 70th birthday was coming up, and was asking me how I feel, what were some of the things that I feel helped me to... I look at reaching the age of 70 as an achievement. It is something that you do right now on a piece of paper and say, I have achieved this work. When you compare the situation, as Frank was saying just now socially, as to where our society is positioned and where we came from, we as the older people and as people who are talking, we are disappointed where we are positioned from. I heard remarks about how people who are now called senior citizens like myself are now. I am a super senior, I'm more than senior. How do we feel as members of the elderly, as they call us during COVID? And how society has abandoned, I would say, certain values. It makes us feel a sense of remorse, and even worse, we don't feel that we are in a position to do much about it. We could make suggestions, we could counsel, we could recommend. But there's a saying sometimes, they're too old to know what they're doing. They can't help us with anything that is happening. Maybe that is true. But I don't think that the society is supposed to be going where we are going. I can give some simple examples. Some that are going on right now. I give thanks to the fact that I am not a principal today. I spent a lot of time, as you heard, with creative people. I don't think that exists anymore. I have a good team, both in IE and in Kuvaset, especially in Kuvaset, who built it. I don't feel that teaming is taking place anymore. We also use a term called volunteerism. A lot of teachers in the school system during my time used to volunteer to do everything. You only have heard throughout the discourse of me being a dean and a sports master and so on. All of that was volunteer. I was never appointed to those positions. And that system existed for a very long time in the education system of Trinidad and Tobago until maybe the early 2000s. And then we started to appoint people to those positions. Well, how those people got to those positions, I don't know. Anyhow, we have issue, I feel, with leadership. So I want to thank myself that I had a good team when I was a leader. I do not envy all the other leaders that they are advocating. I see a lot of fuss going on about children's graduation and their hairstyle. What are we doing? And my own take on it, and some of my colleagues over the years have told me that what we celebrate in June and July is not graduation, it is school leaving. Graduation, the way we do it in our time, is when you achieve something. You have a piece of paper in your hand saying that I have achieved this. Then you graduate. Right now, graduation is being commercialized. I am hearing PCCA children paying $1,200 to graduate. Graduate from what? What are you telling me a 5-year-old is graduating from? And that is society we are building. Again, I'm going back to the point about thank you that I am not there to have to experience and endure what I see happening in our society today. But if anybody has the connection with some of you, just like myself, could only offer advice because of our experience. Experience is a hell of a thing. You can't teach experience. You can't challenge experience. It happens. And then you can reflect and say, this is what you do because something else did not work then. And you adjust. Necessarily, again, thanks that I've had people among me over the years who learn to change. Change has to happen. And if we don't move with the times, we could be left out or be embarrassed. I go back to the point about members of the elderly. I remember one time, I was in my office and I heard this commotion downstairs. I used to reach the school very early, in case they don't know. Because I used to challenge certain students who used to come to school late. If I reached the school before me, I was commission. That was my view. So 6 o'clock in the morning, I sit down in the office. And I hear these two girls are laughing and carrying on and kind of commotion and all. They were betting on a teacher who was trying to reverse path. But video that I very easy. She was trying to, but to tell you what the students were thinking about, rather than go and help the lady get between these parallel lines. Now, I don't already know what I'm talking about. Because all of us had to learn to reverse pattern. And that I had said reflected what was coming up there, and I had to correct it. These days, a lot of people go, they see it happening, they go correct it, and they laugh. We laugh a lot at serious things in this country. And if someone doesn't stand up, and I am not getting political, I know how I get to be in other words, really, you know that when you see so we are talking about leadership being assertive to do what has to be done. Everybody knows what has to be done. It is just who has to do it without any sort of fear or fear. Thank you all very much. And remember the right word is thanks. So you have listened to it because I think that feeling at the touch sitting in the screen. What has happened so far, going back to the celebration of the event, we have had appetizers so far. The main dinner will be ready in a few minutes. There's a house DJ who will be playing some music. I have asked him to play some if you want some more, or you can go and question on yourself. His name is Raj. So DJ Raj is available at any time for some class. And continuing the mode of past students, we also have a live band. The members are down there. The leader is a past student of Kuvaset named Kavish Maharaj. The name of the band, obviously, Kavish the band. And they will be coming up. If you want it, I gave them a playlist that I would like to hear. I like certain songs. For example, that song you heard in the church, You Raise Me Up. That's my favorite spiritual, especially the chorus. If you still have a copy of the program, I know there's a story and things like that. Just read the words of the chorus and see how deep it could go in anyone's life. It really inspired me. It was the first, when we had saw it was not hymn, it's a spiritual song that was sung in church a lot in my time, and I got to love that song. And I requested that song for to do, and every time I have a program of any kind, that song will be present. Also, there would have been little tidbits that will go with passing on to students, like even making what you might call quotes from not necessarily the Bible, but from any type of divine interaction that I have seen. Very long time when I was growing up, they would say, when you pray, ask and you will receive. But one of my spiritual teachers told me, say, no, you don't really ask and you get the thing that you will want to get to receive. What God does is that He gives you an opportunity to receive what you are looking for. I'll give you a simple example how that happened. I remember just like anybody else, when they're writing an exam, you're praying a lot. You're praying to pass the exam, you're praying to pass the exam. And you hope that God will help you pass the exam. And one day, my neighbor who had finished that exam before me gave me all his past papers. I didn't know that. And then they signaled to me, God wasn't helping me to pass the exam. He was showing me the opportunity to pass the exam. And I took that as an answer. I throughout my entire teaching career, I always used to have doing past papers. It went on to be sporting arrangement. Whenever they play in a sport, make sure and train and practice hard for the real thing. That's why I am. But to each his own, those are the things that affected me. I see all the watching me and I kind of read that, and I see that should stop me. Thank you. Thank you. And we will hear music, as I said, and then I will be saying in about 5 minutes, we will use a very simple line-up better on the steps up there, and the caterers will be singing it as usual. Okay, thank you again for all your attention.